All right. And good morning, everybody. This is Sherman Ray, and this is Black Success Magazine, the podcast. And welcome, everybody. Thank you for being a part of the show today. I'm your host, Sherman Ray, and this is Black Success Magazine, the podcast. We come to you Monday through Friday, about 8:30 in the morning till about 9 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, where we talk about the people, the places, the trends, the news that we believe is going to really impact your life, all from a Black success perspective. And today is Financial Thursdays with Robby Thomas. So we're going to be bringing Robby in just a second. If you would like to hear any more about us at Black Success Magazine, especially if you want to check out all of our news articles and that kind of thing, just go to our website, which is at blacksuccessmagazine.com, and we're updating that website all the time. So we've got some weird, quirky things going on right now, but don't fear not. We will actually get that all taken care of. On Fridays, we have Open Mic Friday, and on that show, we really talk about the things that you want to talk about. If you'd like to have a question that you just on the edge of your seats, you want to know about what's going on, and you want to get my perspective on it, just send me an email at info@blacksuccessmagazine.com, and we'll answer that question on air. So that's my my thing to you. Just go ahead and ask me that question. As always, you can always follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or Apple Podcast. You can actually go to your Alexa smart speaker and just say, "Hey, Alexa, we'd like to, we want to hear what's going on with Black Success Magazine, the podcast." So today, once again, it is Financial Thursdays with Robby Thomas. So let's bring in the man of the hour, Robby Thomas. Robby, how you doing, brother?
I'm great this morning. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing awesome, man. Another beautiful day.
Amazing.
Yeah. And so many of you probably don't know this, but Robby just celebrated an anniversary. And so we welcome you home, Robby. So where did you take your vacation at?
It was so difficult prying myself away from the shorelines of the Laguna Beach, but somebody has to do it, right?
I know. Everybody's like going, "Oh, poor Robby. You had to pry yourself away from Laguna Beach to come back to Vegas, right?"
Yeah. It was beautiful. Really, really nice.
Yeah. How was the weather out there?
Actually, it was really nice. It was really nice and very pleasant. It was enough to see folks surfing and taking a dip in the ocean. So that was fine. Yeah.
So while most of America is like under a blanket of ice and snow, you're in Laguna Beach where people are surfing.
Hey, I did my time on the snow stuff. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
I did my time.
Yeah. Well, it's good. So it's good to be back home in Las Vegas.
Indeed.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, the world of finance never ceases. Before we get going into talking about finance today, did you hear in the news today, here, at least in Nevada, that they are opening up all of the vaccinations for COVID?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really positive thing in terms of, where we want to go and the momentum that I see happening across the country with respect to, people feeling a little bit more comfortable. I think that's a really, really big plus for us here in Nevada.
Yeah, I'll tell you, we've been at the height of the pandemic. Our unemployment rate was like at 35%. I mean, it was huge.
It's huge.
And I think up north, it's like 4%, something like that, 5% right now.
Yeah,
we're still at about 10% down here in Las Vegas, but it's nothing compared to what it was before the height of the pandemic at 35%. That's just huge.
And from what I hear, there are a lot of positive signs with respect to conventions that we're signing up to be here later on this year. So that's a lot of really positive signs for us. Yeah.
I just messed with our screen thing, so we're a little different. You know what? We already got people who are actually commenting on stuff. That's pretty interesting that we've already got people commenting. And anyways, so let's talk a little bit about finance. So today you wanted to talk about a couple of things we're going to talk about. In the first segment, we'll talk about well, let's just get into it. Let's just get into it right now. So what are some of the new things that are going on that you'd like to talk about today? You said something about DeFi.
There's a lot of really cool things happening in the new emerging financial world. And the concept referred to as DeFi, DEFI, which is an acronym for decentralized finance.
Okay.
And so this is an emerging space where essentially a lot of the banking services, a lot of the financial services that, traditionally have been housed with, key players in the market, like major banks. What's happening is that a lot of the new technology is based on decentralizing these powers. And so a democratization of technology is flattening the space. What do I mean by that?
Yeah, so let me back up a little bit, because right now, currently, we are in a pretty central, I guess we're in a centralized banking situation. So what does that mean? What does that look like?
Basically, if I want to do business with someone in Africa, for example, there's absolutely no way I can do that without going through a middle person, whether I want to send money, to transfer money, to do business a certain way. So there's a lot of centralization in the space. If I want to borrow money, there's a certain way that's done. If I want to leverage an asset in a certain way, there's a certain protocol or the certain practice that has been developed over the last 100 or so years. That's how we do business here.
Yeah.
What also has happened as a result is that a lot of people have been locked out of participation.
Okay, sure.
So I think for you and I, who kind of spend a little bit more time with the African American community, we see that there's for example, there's a lot more barriers to entry if you're looking to buy, if you're trying to get capital, for example.
Sure.
If you're trying to buy certain types of businesses or what have you, trying to acquire certain things, there's a little bit more of a gap for us to bridge. And so this is kind of where this all was birthed, in getting a better opportunity for folks that wanted to play in this arena. But with all the barriers that were preventing folks from getting in, I think the decentralization movement brings down those barriers, or breaks them down in a way that makes it easy to participate.
Okay, so Robby, if you will have a centralized banking system or financial system, I guess I've got a couple of questions. One is, who is it centralized around?
Yeah.
And number two, how does it benefit? What is the benefit of, at least to the people who it's centralized around? Because it sounds to me like that would benefit them.
So
how does it benefit them by keeping it centralized?
Well, obviously, in terms of, when you talk banking, you're talking about being able to take advantage and leverage products like loans. And loans is basically how banks make money. If I lend you money, you pay fees, right?
So let's start with, who is it centralized around? So let's start with that.
So the system is centralized in the sense that there are institutions that have been regulated, or they've been set up to provide financial services to everyone, right? And so you can't do anything financially unless you go through those banks, or you go through those institutions.
So we're talking about banks.
We're talking about banks, lending institutions,
savings and loans, maybe.
investment houses, right?
Okay. Investment house.
Yeah, exactly. Folks that actually engaging in the markets, whether it's Wall Street or Main Street, right? Essentially, they're all financial institutions, and to some extent, the federal government, the monetary system, right? The Federal Reserve banking system.
So it goes all the way up the line. So it goes from the feds, which would be at the top, and it just kind of trickles its way down but they're all a part of this system of centralizing the financial or the banking or being able to do commerce, I guess.
Yeah. Banking is a highly regulated industry, and so there needs to be some checks and balances. But here's what happened in 2008. It's happened prior as well, but in 2008, when the financial system crashed, then it showed how vulnerable the system could be when actors do not behave in a prudent manner, right? It impacts everyone.
Yes.
And for folks, African Americans lost half of their wealth during that financial downturn. And so when that kind of thing happens, there's a domino effect that impacts a lot of people unwittingly, right? And so this move is really to begin to change the way we see and do business in the financial space.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. So we kind of covered who's it's centralized around, and you were starting to hit on why does it benefit those people to have everybody basically in order, around a system that they've developed. So how does it benefit them by having it centralized?
About how does the centralized system or decentralized?
The centralized system, how does it benefit the federal, from the feds all the way down? I mean, how does it benefit them by having everybody?
Well, I think it benefits, I've been in the banking industry for so long, obviously it benefits the players. We talk about Wall Street, we talk about all these major players who have become wealthy over years and years and years of being in charge of a system that basically benefits the folks that run the system, right? And so if you're, Jamie Dimon, for example, if you're one of those types of players, these market makers, they basically get paid to manage funds. They get paid to manage money, to invest your money. When you do a loan, it gets packaged and sold and securitized. Everyone benefits at every level. We're the consumer, and we're at the lowest part of that chain. And so at the end of the day, to get into that game, in other words, if you're trying to build a business or you're trying to grow a business, you have to interchange, or you have to negotiate with the banks. You have to negotiate with the lenders and those kinds of things. And it's not that there's anything wrong with that, inherently wrong with that. But over time, we're in a more sophisticated type of environment, economic environment, where the internet has made things so fast that the banking system is not able to deal with that. And so you need a centralized figures. If everything goes through that centralized process, it takes too long, right? You got to get to one person, that got to get to another person, to another person. And so money just takes too long to get through that entire network of things. A decentralized system is a flatter system and less less friction involved.
Okay. Well, it's funny because even as you're talking about it, and this is my first time hearing about it, I really appreciate Robby Thomas coming on to kind of peel back the layers of this thing. But as you're talking about a centralized, format or centralized platform for finance, it sounds to me like it's almost like a franchise. In that a franchisor, says to the franchisee, guess what? We have a system that's set up, and you're only going to make this much on it, but you're going to pay us a fee because we set up the system for you. But in this case, we're the ones who are providing the way to make money. Okay, we're the ones who are providing the money for the franchisor to tell us how to use our own money, which is very strange. And so, what were you going to say? What do you think?
You hit the nail on the head.
You
hit the nail on the head, because at the end of the day, our money is being used to make, and it's called fractionalized banking, where you can
big word,
use. I know there's a lot of digitization, fractionalization. A lot of this is basically utilizing monies that we deposit, and those monies are used to lend to other institutions or individuals, and that money is essentially creating new money. So
starting with our money, though.
Yeah, exactly. Starts with our money. The same thing with head managers of assets. We talk about the Merrill Lynches of the world and Goldman Sachs. They, people like that, the Wall Street investor community, they basically manage people's monies. And so what this is doing is what the new system is doing is upending, what the old, guard used to do. And they're saying, we want to have more control over our assets. We want to have control over our intellectual property. We want to have more control over our capital. And so this new system is saying we want to take back some of the power and be able to leverage our assets to our benefit and to our advantage.
Well, that makes a lot more sense, doesn't it? Since it's my money.
Exactly.
And I want to be able to not have to pay a third person or a middleman to use my own money. So this decentralized finance now, the DeFi, what form is that taking on? I mean, what are we talking about, the Bitcoins and those types of things, or what is that? Or is it just an overall thinking?
Well, you're really talking about an overall sentiment about going against this old way of doing business. But you're also talking about new and emerging technologies that are more efficient. And let me back up a little bit and sort of paint a picture for you in a very short space here. That since the 1990s, the internet has played a role in breaking down a lot of barriers. The internet is like this black hole that absorbs everything that can possibly be absorbed. So, for example, we talked about storefronts that moved from Main Street to the virtual superhighway, right? So the dot-com boom and the dot-com move was really a dematerialization of hard assets into the internet. And so we started moving down a trajectory where assets were becoming a lot more virtual. So this is not something that just happened, in the last year or so. This has been a move since the 1990s of things becoming a lot more virtual in how they actually engage in the economy. So we have digital real estate, we got digital gold, digital oil. You're going to see everything that can possibly become digital. So that brings us to this idea of NFT, and I'll get back to your point about how decentralization, DeFi is working. But NFT, the concept of non-fungible tokens, that simply is the culmination of all of those, that entire move, where you're now taking an asset and digitizing that asset. For example, a book that you decide, a piece of art that you made, you can now, a digital piece of art, give that art piece a unique signature in the blockchain or in the internet, and you can really leverage that asset because you own it, and everyone else knows that you own it. And that's the nature of a NFT, which is basically a digital piece of a digital asset that lives and breathes on the internet that you can leverage. So
it's an awesome concept too, because really you went from, like you said, a physical thing, to now it's a digital thing, and now they're just creating a hierarchy around it so that it's able to move a lot faster. Whereas in the old days, literally, let's say you go into a little town, and you've got a farm. Okay, you have a hard asset that you can actually do something with, and the banker goes, okay, well, I can loan you money based upon this hard asset. Well, now what they've done is they just basically said, look, we're removing all that stuff because I don't have a hard asset. I've got a digital representation of it. And now everything's kind of a digital representation.
So even gold is being digitized. So everything that can be digitized will be digitized. But there's a difference between an NFT and other digital assets. So
we're talking about a hard asset, gold. Everybody knows what that gold.
Correct.
So now an NFT or a non-fungible token is what?
Is basically an asset that you can't necessarily, it's not going to be, you can't exchange it for cash per se. In other words, Bitcoin is a fungible asset. You can trade it for cash, like a dollar.
Okay.
right? Now, a NFT is a digital asset that's an asset, but you can now sell it. So it's like a piece of like an art piece, for example, right?
Okay.
You can't just go and shop with it, but you can sell it. It's something that you own. It's kind of like a piece of data, essentially, right? So there's a subtle difference between a fungible asset and a non-fungible token. Does that make sense?
Well, let's even break it down even simpler, I guess, for people,
Okay.
because I know my mind's trying to kind of wrap around this. So Bitcoin, which
Yes.
is a digital asset,
Right.
is fungible, you said.
It is fungible, meaning
because you can exchange it for cash.
Exactly. That is digital. That's digital. Yeah, digital.
All right. So hopefully everybody's getting this. So Bitcoin, which is a non-physical thing,
right? Yeah,
but it is a digital representation of cash.
correct.
Can be exchanged for cash. So you can go down to the store right now and go, yes, I want that car. I'm going to pay for it with Bitcoin.
You can,
okay? If they accept Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And more people are asked. But a non-fungible token let's say it's an art piece, or let's say it's a physical thing, cannot be exchanged for cash, but you can sell it.
Yeah, it's a representation of an asset. But let me make it even easier.
Yeah.
Think about you as a creator of music, which you pretty much understand. Now you can take your music and create a NFT, which can be sold. So now you have a digital representation of your music, your intellectual property, that you can now package in an NFT and sell to folks. That you can basically say, this is something I own. I can now sell it, as a token, a representation of this intellectual property, this asset that I own. It's essentially taking data and making it into something that you can identify as your own.
So is an NFT just digital, or can it be physical?
It's pretty much digital. And so because it lives it's unique to the digital space. And so NFTs are also built on what we call smart contracts. So if it understands that if someone owns something and someone wants to buy it, neither one of those individuals need to talk to each other, but the code that the stuff is built on understands that one person's buying, one person's selling, and if they agree on something, the contract is self-executing. So those are some of the new kinds of technologies that are coming down the pike.
So what's the benefit of that kind of
it's a world of benefit, because today I don't necessarily own all the data I have on Facebook.
True. Even though you think you do.
So Facebook can leverage my data and get paid, which they have done and continue to do, right? And they will always, continue to do that. So, and that it's made them one of the largest companies in the world, right? Now, the DeFi movement is saying we want to own all our intellectual property, all our data, right? So at some point in the future, you can say, my data, I can create my own NFT, right? All the data that belongs to me becomes my capital, and now I can own it. And so
like a show like we're doing right now, that is produced on Facebook, it's done on YouTube, it's gone up, and the podcast, which will also go out, we can't, sometime in the future, there's going to be a unique signature put on that's going to say that this belongs to Black Success Magazine, and you cannot resell this thing.
You can't do anything with it unless you let me know. And the blockchain is going to secure that through cryptology and through code. And so those are some of the kinds of new innovations that's really making people like you and me, regular folks, a lot more opportunities to realize value from our own intellectual property.
Yeah, it's kind of like you have in your house. I mean, you have your house and you live in it. I mean, you live in it day to day, but all of a sudden somebody comes along, they go, hey, you could rent out that room over there.
Right.
And you go, what? You mean that room that I've had forever, Right. Oh yeah, you can rent out that room and you can do this with this and you can do that with that. And now all of a sudden there's this new awareness of everything we're doing that other people have been doing for years, right?
Right.
Facebook has been profiting off of our content that we put on
Amazon,
every day.
Everybody.
I mean, every day people upload stuff on it because for us, it's an expression of who we are. But to Facebook, they're going, oh, yeah, it's an expression of who you are. Well, cha-ching, cha-ching, ka-ching, because they're selling it every day.
Consider they have all your likes, all the stuff that all the opinions you've shared. They know your network and they know your net worth too, because by association, they build algorithms to determine, where you live, zip codes. Data is king. Data is capital. And unless we learn to own our own data. Now, getting back to the point you made earlier about the DeFi and why is that so critical in decentralization versus the decentralization piece. Centralized systems can be hacked. Okay. And we all know that through the credit bureaus and some of the big banks and some of the big retailers, they've all been hacked because they all have centralized systems. It's easy for a bad actor to get into, if they're good and they know what to do, they can hack into your system and steal your data, right? And so a decentralized system is a lot more difficult for a bad actor to hack into. So one of the big things about a Bitcoin, for example, is that Bitcoin is built on a network that has not been hacked and is very difficult, if not impossible, to hack. So those are some of the kinds of things that make this new technology so compelling. And I think it's important for us to have conversations about them, not that we need to know all the minute details about, but at least we know about the concepts and that we can spend more time understanding them.
Yeah, I think it's great. Robby, thank you so much for that. I tell you, this has been an eye-opening experience. I'm looking forward to what's going to happen in the future, especially because like a lot of other people, I put a lot of content on a lot of platforms, and to know that we probably at some point can monetize that, because really a lot of people have the Facebooks, the YouTubes, the Twitters of this world have been really benefiting from a lot of the content that we are putting on there, and we've not been paid for it, other than the kind of the emotional thing,
You want to hear something really funny?
But we need to be able to do that.
You want to hear something real funny? Elon Musk I think he just offered to sell one of his earliest tweets as an NFT. And I think it's being offered in the vicinity of millions of dollars. So it's interesting that this is starting to catch on in a way that people are going to take advantage of. Even wealthy folks are going to take advantage of it.
Well, yeah, sure. It's like it's almost like your early baseball card, right?
Exactly what it is.
Yes,
exactly. Virtual baseball cards. They go for millions of dollars too.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Robby, thanks a lot. We will see you again next week for Financial Thursdays with Robby Thomas. Thank you so much, brother.
All right, cool. Talk to you. Bye.
And folks, I hope you enjoyed that. Can you imagine that? You've got I could sell one of my earliest tweets for $1 or whatever. And so it's something to really keep an eye on. So this has been Sherman Ray, Black Success Magazine, the podcast. Thank you once again for being a part of the show. Thank you for the folks that are offering comments and stuff like that. We love your constructive comments. And Friday, tomorrow, we are having our open mic Friday. So if you'd like to get in on that, folks, and you'd like to send me a question that you'd like me to answer online or on the air, just send me an email at info@blacksuccessmagazine.com. I'd love to answer that for you. As always, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Apple Podcast, where you can download our podcast, and they get them out there as much as we can. We actually missed a week or so, but and maybe we'll auction those off because they were really good. Anyways, we will see you again, folks, tomorrow for Open Mic Friday with Black Success Magazine. This has been Sherman Ray. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.